Well, look who's back for more Second Cup. It's you. And it's me, your host, Tim Heller. My guest for today's episode is Katie Cross. Katie has spent her life in the theater world, earning her bachelor's degree from Texas State University, go Bobcats, and her master's of arts degree in theater directing from the Chicago College of Performing Arts at Roosevelt University. She has also navigated some really interesting career pivots, from teaching in the theater world to now working at a really cool job at Covenant Lighting in Houston. If you've been enjoying Second Cup, I'd like to invite you to show support for us in any of the following ways. First is by sharing episode links on social media and tagging @TimHellerCreative. Second is by rating, leaving reviews, and subscribing in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're consuming podcasts. Third is subscribing, liking, and commenting on our YouTube channel, Tim Heller Creative. Second Cup playlist has all of the episodes. And finally, if you want to support financially, you can Venmo @TimHellerCreative or reach out via email to me at tim@timhellercreative.com to discuss sponsoring one or several episodes. Any and all of these actions mean a ton and really help boost the show's visibility. And any of the financial support goes directly back into the show by sending some small gifts to my guests and hiring more people to help me manage the boatload of content I have so I can properly promote them all. Quick note, Katie's internet cut out on us a couple times during this interview, but I think I managed to smooth everything out okay. Now, top off your beverage, get comfy, and enjoy this episode of Second Cup with Katie Cross. Hey, Katie, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I am awake and busy,
Yes.
and very excited to be here.
Great. I'm so excited to have you. I'm always excited when I see people take me up on the 8 a.m. time slot. It's either going to be like we are dragging ourselves here, or we are up and ready to go. So
I am the up and ready to go. So
yes, it's a sober superpower of mine now that I
love it.
Had in high school, and now it has returned.
Well, welcome to the Early Bird Club. We have T-shirts.
Oh, great! I'll put my size order in.
Perfect.
Well, Katie, I'd love to jump right in because I see we have a lot of crossover in our lives, and I'm surprised we haven't run into each other more and had more conversations already. So, between Texas State, College Station with my wife's family, and Chicago with your master's degree at Roosevelt. So. Yeah. I'll let you take it away. I want to hear, and for our listeners to hear too, who you are, where you're at, and just a little snip of what you do.
Oh my gosh, the Katie Cross bio in 3 minutes or less. So yeah, I actually grew up with your wife Jessica in Bryan College Station, and we started doing theater together at a very young age, and we're really great friends. And that's kind of how I started my artistic career as a performer. Went to Texas State University.
Yeah.
Go Bobcats. Majored in theater ed and was on the track to be a theater teacher. I taught for about 5 years, and then I started grad school at the University of the Chicago College of Performing Arts at Roosevelt, and got my master's degree in directing, and that was the best artistic experience of my life. Made me just an amazing program, and super proud of that. That happened right before the world shut down, of course. And then I taught a couple more years, and then I made a huge career change about almost a year ago. And
congratulations.
And now thank you. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And now I work for an audio, video, and lighting company here in Houston called Covenant. And I am the director of the education side of business. So all things schools related, college related, when it comes to technical theater gear. And it's been an amazing experience. And I live here in Houston, and I still, I'm on a performance sabbatical right now, but I'm hoping to get back into the performing and directing world in Houston next semester. And as you can see, I have one of my dogs. I'm a tripod mom, so I've got two three-legged pups, and that's just kind of where we're at in 3 minutes or less.
Wow, that is so cool, Katie. I mean, so, gosh, I would love to start with I would love to start at the beginning and start with the teaching route and going to Texas State. And I know their theater ed program is, from what I knew of it while I was there. I think we overlapped for a year.
I think
what
so.
year did
But
you graduate? 2011?
Yeah, 11. But that whole year I wasn't on campus because you're like student teaching. So I was like
Great.
never around campus
Yep,
because
so
I
that
was
explains.
in the field.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear who inspired you to be a theater teacher, what drew you to that initially, and then to go and get your master's in Chicago. Just because that I know for a lot of folks who grow up in Texas too, at least in my experience, it's been like, but I'm gonna like stick it out here for the most part. And like, what drew you to that program at Roosevelt?
Yeah. So starting off, I was raised in the classroom. My mother retired last year, was a teacher for 29, 28 years. So I grew up in the classroom, and growing up, I was like, I am never going to teach. This is not what I'm going to do. I'm going to go be a performer on Broadway. And lo and behold, like I had the greatest mentor, right in front of me. I didn't even know. And so when I started my college journey, it was performance-based. And then I worked at a camp for 9 weeks, and I lived with 14 to 16-year-olds in a cabin, and I absolutely loved it. And then I was like, you know what? If I enjoy this experience, I really need to reevaluate like what I want to do with my life professionally. And that ultimately led to, okay, I'm going to change my major, to teaching. And then once I kind of fell into that, it was just automatic. Everything clicked. It was really great. I had all these skills of watching, my mom teach for years that I just knew. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I didn't do theater in high school. I did choir, and then just did, performing on the side and professionally. So I didn't know what a high school theater experience was. I had no idea what one act play was. I had no clue, which was a great learning experience when I was thrown into it, and then I had to leave it. So that, I've had amazing mentors along the way. We talked about the Texas State program, and Velocity Silhavy is the head of the theater ed program, and she's amazing and was the most amazing help and mentor, getting me ready for my first couple of years.
Katie, I think I lost you. Hey, welcome back.
Sorry about that.
No, don't apologize. It's all good. This has happened a couple times, and it's really easy for me to just like pick up and then go. So I think the last thing I heard was, it was as you were transitioning into Texas State, going for your theater degree.
Okay, perfect. So I transferred to Texas State for my theater degree, and there is where I really got mentored to be a theater teacher, learn the ins and outs. It's an amazing program. Velocity Silhavy, who is the head of the program now, was a great mentor to me and still is, and just one of the best teaching professors ever. So I got my first job right after I graduated, and off I went into teaching world. And then kind of how I got into grad school was my good friend Jeremy Torres, the late Jeremy Torres, who was my directing mentor for years. Yeah. Love him. And he was the one that was like, well, you're a director. You're really a director at heart. And I was like, I don't know. And he really encouraged me to look and reach out. And so I did a Google search and was just like, I want to still teach. I'm I'm not rich, so I need to still be able to have income. And there's a couple of like summer programs for educators that are out there. And this one was specifically to be a director. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I need to hone my skills on. That's what I need to. So I didn't know anything about it. I applied on the very last day you could, and found out the next week that I was in. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to Chicago. I don't know anybody, like, let's do it. And so the program is like an 8-week intensive in the summer. You live in Chicago. It's a fast track program. So it really is like a directing MFA in like 9 weeks or less for 3 years.
Holy crap.
It's intense, but again, like you have the most amazing teaching artists from Chicago teaching us. From
and
DePaul,
what a time of year to be in the city too. Like Chicago in the summer it's just
everything.
insane. People talk like when I lived in New York, people were like, "Oh, New York City in the summer is amazing." I'm like, it's fine in the summer, but it's like real swampy. And Chicago is just the best. The whole city comes alive.
It really does. And again, to be like with a cohort of 20 of your closest friends and
Mm-hmm.
learning theater every day and then hanging out and going out and seeing theater at night or doing all the fun Chicago things, like I fell in love with that city. It is a part of me. It is like I have like a shelf in my living room just with all my Chicago memories just because it shaped me who I was, in my like late 20s, and it was the best. And so
Yeah.
I got to produce my thesis with my high school students, and my professor flew down to Texas, graded me. It was wild. It was the most insane thing, but it was amazing. So it's really random how I found the program, but again, like I
Yeah.
made my lifelong friends, and it
That's
was
so
wonderful.
cool. Who were some of the
Yeah.
teachers and what were some of the theaters that you got to work with? I know Roosevelt's pretty deeply ingrained in
Yeah. Oh
the
my
theater
gosh.
there. So
We had one of my favorite classes was Damon Keeley. He is the head of theater directing at DePaul,
mm,
and watching him in the rehearsal space and learning how to be an effective director in the rehearsal space changed everything about how I thought about directing. And it was just amazing. And he actually has like a series of books out on directing that are just phenomenal. And it's that that class changed my life tremendously. And then we got to work with a ton. Steppenwolf, Looking Glass. We did a devised theater class with two of the ensemble members from Looking Glass, and I was just like, I didn't know theater like that existed really.
yeah,
Because I've been
Looking
in high.
Glass is a special place. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my god! I saw the Moby Dick, and it was amazing. And it again changed my life. And everything from Steppenwolf, I was just like, this is where it's at. This is good theater. So, yeah, just being immersed in those amazing programs was just worth everything. Yeah.
Oh no, Katie.
Good luck with your editing skills on this one. Like what the what?
It seriously is so
I'm
okay.
like,
It's
well, here's the
making it
wild
fun and
thing.
exciting. It's keeping me on my
Yeah,
toes. So
I'm
the
like,
last
I
thing I
work
heard
from,
this time,
yeah.
oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I work from home all day for the most part, and this never happens. So I'm like, what? Of course, it's gonna happen today.
It is so okay. That happens to me when I'm recording with clients is like I will have no issues with my remote software to plug into an engineer
Yeah,
in Germany's board. And then
right.
the second I have a session with somebody in New York or New Jersey, it just like says, not today.
That's it. Yeah, wild,
Okay.
wild, wild.
So so last thing I heard this time was Steppenwolf. That's where all the great theater. I mean, one of the many places where great theater is, and then it
Yeah,
froze.
yeah. Uh, Steppenwolf, and we talked about Looking Glass, and I got to produce my thesis down here in Texas with my
Right.
students. My professor flew in, and so yeah, it shaped me as who I was as an artist, and I graduated right before the world shut down. So it was really great to have all that knowledge and then produce digital theater. So,
Yeah. So
um,
with the world shutting down, something that's come up with a lot of the other artists that I've had some conversations with on here, I love hearing how you navigated that and producing digital theater, and what did that look like for you and with your students? We've had some people on who are producing work with a company here in Austin for people with disabilities in theater, and then we have I've had a guest on who produced immersive theater in London, digitally and remotely, and so I'd love to hear how you navigated that and how it was received by the students.
Man, that was, talk about being stretched, talk about being stressed.
Yeah.
When everything happened, we didn't produce anything really. It was March, so we graduated kids in May. So it was just like a lot of keep in touch with your students and make sure they're okay. Cool. We come back in August, and we still don't know what's going on. We are not allowed to, I mean, every rule changed, everything was shifting so quickly. My demographic of students is a lot different than other schools in the district, where a lot of my students, their parents work night shifts So they are in charge of the family during the daytime. So they were not coming to campus. They were having to take care of younger siblings or get a part-time job. So ultimately the first thing we did was we did a BIPOC theater festival. And what we did is we put students in breakout rooms on Zoom, and they recorded scenes that we found from playwrights of Black, Indigenous, people of color. And that was kind of our first trek into it. I was like, I know we can record. I know they can create costumes. It was very much like, let's figure this out, and I will figure out how to broadcast it. And so that was our first step into the digital world. It was, a lot. Didn't know much about broadcasting. Do. So that was our first step. And then the second thing that we did is we actually did the play Trifles. And it's a short, about 15 to 20 minute play. And we were like, we have the bandwidth to do that. And we got recording equipment from the AV department, and we would do rehearsals with 2 to 3 people. We actually did build a set on stage just to give the feeling of live theater as much as possible, especially for our technicians. And so it took us about 3 months to put it together, and then we made a film, and then people could buy tickets, and then you could go to our online box office, and we would stream it at performance time. So we did it. It is not my cup of tea.
Wow.
It was not what I learned a lot, but I will not, I'm happy to never do that again. But I did learn a lot, but it was really, how do we give our students this opportunity, and how do we work within these creative boundaries, if you will? And so we made it happen, and the best that we could. And then finally the next semester we were able to be together on stage. That was really great.
That's awesome. Wow. What, I mean, a roller coaster for everybody, but I feel teachers especially really, one of my best friends is a teacher in New York City, and watching him have to navigate everything, as even just, it was his spring break when we were all on vacation together, when everything shut down in New York. We were up in Vermont, and watching him just immediately go into work mode, he was like, I really don't have a spring break anymore. I'm figuring out and just how he ended up working more because he had to film all these classes and put it, and watching how all the different schools approached it. It was fascinating and inspiring. It was really wild.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It did get to a point where I was like, I think my job in this pandemic as an online teacher is to make sure that my students' mental health is okay. And so theater kind of took a backside about April. And I was just like, let's check in, let's talk. How are we doing? Do you need anything? Because I know that they're having such a hard time in core classes. And I was like, let's develop social and, mental skills right now. And I was going through the same thing. And that was just what we could sit in and share. And I was just like, don't worry about this class so much. I need you to worry about, taking care of yourselves and others. So it was difficult.
Yeah. So heading out of teaching, and what was, I love hearing how people pivot and what that little inner wisdom voice is. Because I've not traditionally been great at it. I've just kind of thrown myself at things, and learning more as I get older to how to listen, or what to listen for, and how to respond when it comes to listening to my gut, listening to my heart, or inner wisdom, God, the universe, whatever, whoever. So what was that like for you? What was that? How did that start out for you to transition out of teaching? And what was that process like? Because I have to imagine it was extremely emotional and a difficult choice in some ways. But I would love to hear what that process was like for you.
Yeah, this is the best story. This is the coolest thing.
Yes.
So I taught my CEO's son at a school, and that is how we met. And I became his wife. His wife was on the Booster Club, and we became really good friends. And I really helped. Loved both their students. We're still really close friends today. And he took me out to lunch one day right before the pandemic, and was like, what do you think about coming and working with us, and kind of just put it in my brain. And I was like, no, I love teaching. This is great. Everything's wonderful. Then the pandemic happened, and I had a nervous episode. I had to
Mm-hmm.
move back home with my parents. I had to reevaluate a lot of things, get centered, and in the back of my mind, I was like, I think I'm just gonna call him. I think I'm just gonna call Sean and just say, hey, like, is this job available? Like, what do you think? So I went out to almost a year later. I went out to dinner with him and Kim, and I said, I think I need to come work. I want to come work. I think this is what I need. I need to change. And he just goes, I've just been waiting for you to make the call. I was like, oh. I was like, oh, okay. And so he was like, I want you to sit on this for a month. We have time.
Mm-hmm.
It's March. And then in that month, everything just in my teaching world was not stable. It was crumbling, for a lack of better words. It was insanely difficult. And I was like, I gotta at least try this, because what I'm doing in teaching is not working for me. Like, it's just not a viable career option for me right now, which is terrifying. I knew I wasn't a lifer in teaching. I knew I wasn't a lifer, but I thought I at least had like 4 or 5 more years, like, within me to keep going. But I just joined on. I didn't know. I know tech theater equipment. I didn't know it as well as I thought I needed to, and I learned a lot
Mm-hmm.
here. So my boss saw a lot in me that I did not see in myself. And that is the reason why I love working for this company, and how he sees employees and how he knows who to bring in and to, like, make this team. And so I got in, and then 2 weeks later, he hired my systems designer, who had a similar story, just from the church world. And so it's just been so fruitful and wonderful. And, throughout this process, I was in therapy for 2 years, because I didn't realize how taxing it was to navigate burnout and what that looks like, because I had been conditioned for 10 years to work 80-hour weeks and thought that was normal. Like,
Yeah.
when I look back now, I mean, it's wild, but there was a lot of unpacking to do, a lot. And
Yeah.
still working through it, but obviously on a much better side of the situation now.
And
So
how did
kinda
burnout manifest for you? Like, how did that show up emotionally, physically for you? Just, I feel like it's valuable for people to hear different ways, because I know that for me personally, it's my wife is my tuning fork. Jess is my tuning fork she will be more in tune with when I need to just, like, call it for a day. Where I feel like, oh, no, I have to be, I can make it through. I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of it was like non-communication with my family, because I was so tired. I wouldn't check in with my family. I was binge drinking, like, a lot. It was bad. I think that was the biggest thing, when I, like, woke up one day and I was like, I am drinking way too much for any human. And then I was having lots of physical symptoms, sick, having panic attacks on the way to work, which, again, thought that was normal. Like, oh, Katie from 2 years ago, that's, like, not normal. Like, everybody kind of talks about the Sunday scaries, and as teachers, and I'm like, we shouldn't be having those. Like, it really shouldn't be a thing. But I had those for years, just the anxiety of going to work the next week, or what I had to do. And so ultimately, the biggest signs was really the binge drinking and, like, what was happening to my physical health. And that's where the healing started, was physically, because I was like, I'm trying to Band-Aid a lot of things, but it's just not working. So those were, like, the main things. And I don't have a significant other or a partner, so I have to check in a lot with myself and do those kind of check-ins, which is hard, but it's what I have to do. So, but yeah, those are the biggest ones.
What a valuable skill to be learning is to check in and be self-reliant. That's admirable that you have jumped into therapy and committed to that. That's awesome.
My gosh. One of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. ever. But again, so necessary, so necessary.
And that's the kind of shit that shapes us, right? That's what when you're going through it freaking sucks. But I think going through the hard stuff that I've had to go through, and some of it's been more drawn out, some of it's been short-lived, some of it is somewhere in the middle. The more you go through hard stuff, the more you're able to sit in it and realize, okay, cool, if I can go through this intentionally and take that time to really receive all the data that's coming in and know that there is a flip side to this coin, then it just makes it a lot easier. It doesn't make it less hard, if that makes sense. It doesn't make it less hard. It just makes it a little bit easier
100%.
to navigate.
Absolutely, like 100%. And that's where I think for me of just learning like coping mechanisms, and like I know like the first 5 things I need to do when I start feeling a certain way, and just like pop through those, and usually I'm set, and I learned how important like physical activity was for me. My body and my brain, I have to move my body to be like mentally okay, which was wild to me, but it's so important. So that was also like part of the learning
extremely
process.
important for mental health. Yeah.
So I'm here and happy now, and I'm so much better. So.
Yay! We're here. We're happy. It's early, caffeinated.
100%.
Let's fucking go.
Yeah. Yep.
So you're with Covenant now. So what is next? Like, what gets you excited about work? What gets you excited about life? What's coming up for you?
Yeah, I mean, so at work, I'm really excited because I have found a space where I can educate and advocate, and still stay like education adjacent. So we have a lot of really awesome projects coming down for high schools. Currently, the trend right now for audio video lighting gear is retrofitting performing arts centers with LED lights and upgraded sound systems. Which is just amazing because we're on the cusp of all this technology, and it's ushering it into the theater space is amazing, but also making it accessible for teachers to learn as well, because we weren't getting taught how to run,
awesome.
LED video walls in college.
Oh
but
no,
guess what?
I've lost you again.
We almost got through.
I know we almost made it. And I'm thinking, am I that bad of an interviewer that Katie wants to dip? So she needs to take a breather every 5-10 minutes. She's like, Tim is exhausting. This is what a jerk.
It's fine. You're doing great.
Last thing I heard was getting the teachers educated on the equipment as well in the schools.
Yeah. So, my platform in this job is to, educate educators on this new gear that's coming down the pipeline, because you're not seeing any of this in your collegiate training. You're not learning how to work with this high-end tech gear that schools are paying millions of dollars to put in spaces, which we love. Advocate for the arts. Let's do it. But we can't just put the gear in and say, peace out. And so that is where I am stepping in and trying to fill that gap of education and knowledge, and say, okay, let me get my team in here. Let's learn. Let's teach your students. Let's get them the professional development they need, and help support them in this aspect, since they have so much to do already. So we have quite a few like really amazing projects coming down the pipeline. We're finishing one this week, which I'm so excited about. We're going to do a whole thing on social media about it. And it was like one of the first projects I got when I first got on board. So that's exciting. We're expanding into the Austin area. We have a San Antonio office, so I'm excited.
Oh, sweet.
I don't know that area as well as I know Houston, so very excited about that. And so just a lot of great things for our education team and my company, so that's exciting coming down the horizon and things like that. And personally, I think I'm ready to start dipping my toe into performing and directing again. I
Exciting.
took a good long break. Yeah, I'm ready. So I'm, trying to see what's out there and see, what shows are coming up. And I've kind of configured my timeline and my schedule a lot better so I can and manage everything else. So Hopefully we'll see either a show I'm directing soon or me on stage soon is what I'm hoping. So
That's
I'm
awesome.
excited. Yeah. Yeah.
And does Covenant
And then
manufacture all of their own lights too? Is it similar to ETC in that way, or do you are more on the expert like installation, education, and that side of things?
we are we are a vendor for manufacturers. So we rep ETC, Verilight,
Awesome.
Strand, I mean, literally, Chauvet, American DJ,
And
Elation.
yeah,
Yeah, so we rep them all. So we are in talks with the higher ups of those companies to say, hey, here's what our clients need. Are we making any gear, that can help them with
got it.
that? So that's another great thing. I've loved just getting to know these companies and how they work and their gear, things like that. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And then I know a lot more about tech now than I ever thought I could. And I was doing a demo, I think a couple weeks ago, and my coworkers who are industry professionals, have been for many, many years, they're like, thank you. I've been working so hard. And we're doing it. So it's cool to see, again, growth in such a short amount of time. So that's exciting for teachers and exciting for students and me.
That's awesome. If you had one thing that you wanted to share with teachers who are thinking about a pivot, this is in no way a ploy to have teachers leave or initiate a mass exodus. But if you had one thing to say, I guess, to people in general who are feeling like they need to change or pivot, or they have that little Jiminy Cricket in the back of their head, encouraging them to make a pivot, what would one piece of advice be to them?
You have to trust your heart and your gut. And I kind of compare it to, because I do talk to a lot of teachers who are ready to leave. It's inevitable that they're going to reach out, and I will help in any way that I can. But if you're fighting something so hard and if you're wrestling with it so much, engage in the idea of like leaning into something else. I think artistically we do that a lot. I do know as a director, sometimes I think this is the thing that's going to work on stage or the concept, and I keep fighting it and it's not working. And then I just take a hard lean somewhere else, and that opened up a way or opened up a solution. And if you feel in your gut, in your heart, that this is not a viable option for you, it's like, that's okay. I think a lot of times teachers have to grant themselves the permission to say, this is not working for me. Because it comes with a lot of stipulation. It comes with a lot of guilt, because you're in charge of this youth of America, teachers' hearts. Every teacher, like, we're there because like less of us, more of others. And so you feel there's a lot of guilt associated with it. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to come home to your family or be there for yourself. And you have to get comfortable with putting yourself first. And that's a very hard concept to learn. And it took me a very long time. And I echo that to educators who do reach out and they're like, I just don't know. And I'm like, 9 times out of 10, when they're telling me this, I'm like, this is exactly how I felt. And they're just like, no one talks about it. And I'm like, I know, because it's hard. I mean, it's hard, but you trust yourself. You trust yourself as an educator, as a professional, trust yourself as a human, and just see where it can go. So I am always happy to help and talk. And I know, again, my whole career right now is based on educators, but I'm also here, like, as human to human, I want you to be okay. And I want you to like have a great life. And if you're not doing that, we have to reevaluate. So.
Yeah. Do you feel like the pandemic helped accelerate that permission for you?
100%. I think we got to see a period of time of what it looks like with more or less responsibilities, more time with ourselves, more time to spend with family, more time to heal. And we were like, oh, this is the life that I like. This is the life that I want to live. And the way that the education system is, specifically in Texas, doesn't allow for that. And I don't know when it will. And I actually had a coworker jokingly was like, would you ever return? And I said, there has to be, I mean, a huge major overhaul in the education system.
Yeah.
And I just don't see that happening. So for me personally, not for everybody, but So yeah, but I think we all got a glimpse into what life could be. And so now a lot of them are, really setting their ground on contract hours and time put in and expectations. And I am here for it. And I'm like, yeah, do it. you know, so.
I know this notion of quiet quitting, I think, is kind of bullshit. It's not quiet quitting. It's just working what your contract says and asking for more if you're asked to do more. And it's, and even as a freelancer, for me, I'm like, I've been full-time doing this for a couple of years now, and I'm having to set those boundaries with clients too, saying, and like I have one client in particular who will try to guilt trip me into doing stuff. And I had to set a boundary with them and say, I'm not working with you if you're going to do this. Cause it's your lack of management of resources and time is not my responsibility. Like, it's not my company, and I can be a team player. And I love being a team player, but it's not my job to fix your problems or to work past where I'm contractually obligated to.
Yeah. Preach it louder for the folks in the back. I mean, 100%. 100%. Like, that's, again, but it's something I had to learn. And now that I'm in corporate world, I'm like, oh, when teachers are like, oh, they want me to do this. I'm like, well, then ask them how much money. And they're like, I can't do that. I'm like, yes, you can. You 100% can. And I'm like,
the first thing you should do in a contract negotiation, first thing you look at is how much money, and then you ask for more because they are going to give you as little as possible up front.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for doing this and for navigating our technical issues with grace and aplomb. And it's wonderful to see you and to really like get to meet you. And when I saw all the connections we had, I was like, how have we not?
Isn't that wild? Yeah, it's
already?
Crazy.
Well, when y'all open your Austin office, let me know. We'll go out for grab a coffee and catch up proper. And before I cut you loose, I've got 4 quick fire questions for you.
All right.
Just a couple 2-3 word answers, top of mind. Here we go.
Okay.
What's the nickname you were called in your childhood?
Lulu.
Who inspires you right now?
My friend Molly Casillas.
Molly, shout out to Molly. What is a piece of content you can't get enough of right now? Can be anything on social media, can be a book, can be a TV series, movie.
I'm currently reading Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, and I am diving deep.
Yes. Oh, love her. Last question is, you can only have pizza one last time. Where from and what's on it?
Oh my gosh. We're just gonna have to do a Papa John's meat lovers with that thick buttery crust and that garlic sauce. That's what we're doing.
Dirty. Yes, absolutely.
That's
also,
happening.
if you haven't had Stars Pizza in Houston yet, you need to go. Oh,
okay.
It
on
is
my list.
So good. They're whole wheat crust, and they also actually do deep dish, like a proper Chicago deep dish.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Their whole wheat crust, normal, regular schmegular pizza with whatever you want on it. Oh, good Lord. And it's so good cold too the next day. That's what sent it over the top for me. So
that's really the test of good pizza is really next day. That's where you got to judge it. Yeah.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for taking the time to do this morning. And I look forward to being able to catch up in person sometime soon.
Awesome. Would love to do that. Thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Thank you kindly for listening to this episode of Second Cup featuring Katie Cross. To keep up with Katie on social media, you can follow her at Katie at Covenant, and you can also check out the Covenant website at covenantcommunications.com. Both of those are linked below in this episode's description to make it easy peasy. Second Cup is recorded and produced by Tim Heller Creative, LLC. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the previous ones, I invite you to show support for us in any of the following ways. First is by sharing episode links on social media and tagging at Tim Heller Creative. Second is by rating and leaving reviews in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume podcasts. Third is subscribing, liking, and commenting on our YouTube channel, Tim Heller Creative. And finally, if you want to support financially, you can Venmo me at Tim Heller Creative or reach out through email to tim@timhellercreative.com to discuss sponsoring one or several episodes. All funds will be used to improve the show and provide the best experience for guests and listeners alike. Tune in next time for another incredible conversation and hopefully to learn something new from a really cool person. Later.